Hello everyone, my name is Lowko and it is time for another best of 5 series of professional StarCraft 2, and what I got for you today is a best of 5 series between two of my personal favorite players. So I think we should be in for a treat. Spawning in game number 1 on Catalyst LE in the top left hand corner of the map and playing with the yellow Protoss probes. He's from North America, he's from the United States, and he goes by the nickname of Neeb. And his opponent in the cross position, playing with the pink Zerg drones. She is indeed also from North America, however she hails from Canada. She goes by the nickname of Scarlett. Now, in case you're unfamiliar with StarCraft 2, both of these players have been around for years and years and years, and they are very, very good at what they do. I mean, Scarlett, of course, one of the very best non-Korean Zerg players of all time. I mean, I say non-Korean, and I actually get quite a lot of questions of people that are new to the game asking why non-Korean is such a important distinction to make. Here's the thing. If you're new to StarCraft 2, right, first off, welcome to the channel. I've seen a massive influx over the last couple of months in subscribers. Thank you guys so much for hitting that sub button. Really appreciate it. It's cool to see so many new people joining every single day. But regardless, for about the first decade and a half or so in StarCraft, and of course, that does also include StarCraft 1, the Korean players were just simply miles ahead of their non-Korean competition. There was no denying that they were just simply better than every single non-Korean professional gamer. And of course, that has to do with like culture, practice regimen, the way that they just simply approached the game as well. There's a lot of little factors, and I could go ahead and make an entire video dedicated to that exact subject. But there was no denying that non-Korean players really didn't have much of a chance against the Korean opponents. Now, in StarCraft 2, of course, the game evened out quite a bit when that first released. While some of the skill sets do carry over, for the most part, it's an entirely new game. And of course, players will once again you know, starting off at a leveled playing field, but even for the first couple of years, Korea was just simply significantly better. Now, we had players like, for example, Stefano that managed to win quite a couple of tournaments, also series and matches against Korean professionals, but I remember watching Neeb back in 2016 win the Kespa Cup, and he's actually currently hiding a probe right here on the right-hand side of the map. Judging by the fact that he's not building a pylon, and he just built one in the main as well, I don't think he's actually planning on proxying anything. Yeah, there we do see that Stargate coming in. But regardless, I remember watching Neeb win the Kespa Cup, right? And the Kespa Cup was a Korean-focused tournament where they also invited a couple of non-Koreans. I mean, Kespa stood for, I believe, the Korean Esports Federation. So it was a Korean-focused tournament where also a couple of non-Korean players ended up playing. And actually, we see an Evolution Chamber coming in here for Scarlett. Now, at the time, it was still rather unheard of for Korean players to lose against non-Koreans, and Neeb ended up obtaining the victory in the grand finals, I believe against Trap, in 4-0 fashion, absolutely smashing, you know, the non-Korean the Korean competition rather. And being a non-Korean player, Neeb has ever since been a I've been a massive Neeb fanboy ever since that tournament went down. Regardless, though, we did see that very quick Evolution Chamber coming up here for Scarlett. She does morph in a Overlord Cocoon inside of the main base, but there's no Nematized Carapace just yet. Scarlett is going to be flying these Overlords across, but she hasn't started the Overlord speed upgrade. That means that these queens eventually will arrive there, but for the time being, these links are going to be unsupported. I mean, while Neeb ended up hiding a probe there, he did confirm that there was no expansion going down there on the low ground just yet. He, of course, does know about the third. He didn't see the Evo yet either, but at this point, yeah, he should know that something is not quite right. Just simply by seeing the lack of a third base there for the Zerg opponent. Scarlett is going to be dropping off slow Zerglings here in the main base of the Protoss opponent. Worker-wise, though, there is no denying that this is currently significantly ahead here in favor, or this is significantly in favor here of the Protoss player. Scarlett, though, is going to go after as many of these probes as she possibly can, already killing 3 of them, 5 probes going down in just a matter of seconds. And while these adepts eventually clean up all of this shenanigans and 6 probes end up going down here in total, I can only imagine that Scarlett must have accidentally forgot her Nematized Carapace. There we go. It's just about to finish up, but this aggression has already been shut down. She actually ends up canceling Nematized Carapace, instead starts up another queen, and then also +1 melee here on these Zerglings. Yeah, these queens, I think they were meant in the fight there as well. Scarlett is now in a situation where it's 26 Harvesters versus 36. That is not quite where you want to be if you are the Zerg player at this point in the game, right? I mean, if you're playing against one of the very best Protoss players on the planet, trying to play catch-up is a very difficult thing to do. Now these oracles are also going to be able to make their way towards the third base, and Scarlett, she doesn't want to deal with this. She decides to just simply GG out. I can't help but wonder if she just simply forgot her Nematized Carapace, but even with that, I don't think it would have been that much different. Neeb seemed to just simply defend that very, very easily. And I mean, while it seemed a little bit preemptive right there for Scarlett to GG out already, if you're gonna go up against a very high-level Protoss player and he's essentially doubling your economy already, and you're just about to lose a handful of drones at the third base as well. Sometimes when you're playing a best-of-5 series, it's better to just simply call it quits early, so you're not gonna be absolutely demolished, mentally speaking, for the remainder of the game. Now, Scarlett, of course, because I've mostly just been talking about Neeb so far in this series, and by the way, game number 2 is gonna be on Odyssey LE. Scarlett, of course, is one of the very best non-Korean Zerg players as well. I mean, she is very, very good at what she does. Recently, she managed to qualify for the GSL Code S, the highest level tournament in all of StarCraft 2, for the first season of 2018. You have to play all kinds of qualifiers to actually make it to the top 32, or the the round of 32 of that tournament. She managed to qualify once again, and I'm really looking forward to watching those games. I don't actually know when they're going to be played. I'm gonna have to figure that out, but I most definitely will be watching those. And if I can potentially get my hand on some of those replays as well, I may end up casting some of those games. Although usually it's pretty tricky to get the replays of these super high level tournaments. Regardless, though, Scarlett definitely a very good player as well. She's very well known for her creep spread. Actually, back in the day, not a lot of players would actually focus on creep spread at all, except for Scarlett. She has got some of the sickest creep spread in all of the game. And while a lot of Zerg players now have gotten very good at that, she was one of the very first ones to really focus on additional queens and to simply spread creep to every single corner of the map. Neeb, though, while he was very well known for his adept-based play, he's really transitioned to become a very good defensive Protoss player. I mean, he's still perfectly capable of playing aggressive with, for example, adepts, but usually we see him play like he did in game 1 there. I mean, he just simply doesn't miss a beat. He just simply defends whatever it is the Zerg player wants to throw at him, and eventually he's going to be able to overpower. It's coincidentally usually also considered to be the hardest style to play with Protoss, just because you have to be really on point with your scouting. You have to read these timings very well. For example, Neeb right now notices that this base goes down at like 2 minutes and 14-ish seconds, and he will know exactly what that means. Right? He knows exactly what that means. He knows that that means that there, for example, are indeed drones pulled off of the gas geyser. He knows that he shouldn't be expecting a quick Nematized Carapace. Little details like that is what Neeb will pick up on at this point in the game, and it allows him to just simply narrow down the options that the Zerg player has at their disposal. Once again, though, we see that Stargate coming in here for the Protoss player. He's gonna be able to get himself that Warp Gate upgrade, and he will also be getting himself his very second adept. I was gonna say very first, but very second sounded a lot better just because the first one is already making its way across the map. This one will indeed confirm that this base did not get cancelled. Neeb is going to be sending this the shade into the main base. Don't know if he wants to commit now. Seeing those Zerglings just simply forces him to deny that, but he did get a little bit of scouting information and saw the amount of drones right there on the gas geyser once again. So far, though, Neeb is doing a great job just simply figuring out what it is he's going up against. I mean, he's forcing a couple of Zerglings here out of the opponent. He's making sure that he knows exactly what it is he's going up against. And he's just keeping the Zerg player on her toes. That's kind of the most important part. I mean, if you're gonna go for that quick third base, you sure can get a lot of economy, and actually the two adepts do decide to shade into the main base right now. You can definitely get a lot of economy, but if you're gonna end up losing a couple of drones here and there, you can very, very quickly end up losing this series as well. Nice little Spore Crawler Morphin right there. Scarlett trying to keep as many of these drones alive, but 4 drones is still pretty significant. First Oracle is now also moving across the map. The Arc Queen's waiting at the third base location to greet this one in time. Scarlett does know about the fact that there's now also another Oracle coming in and another gateway as well. This one likely isn't going to be able to deal that much damage, but every single worker counts. Although, interestingly enough, Neeb is going to go for a Stasis Ward here and still get quite a lot of lost mining time. I mean, a drone mines about 0.8 minerals a second. This still lasts a pretty extended period of time, and while apparently Zerglings managed to make their way towards that natural mineral line, this is a nice little bit of harassment once again by the Protoss player. This can very quickly turn the tides, though. 6 probes going down in just a matter of seconds, and Scarlett is not done just yet. Second Oracle apparently also decided to fly across the map instead of being used for home defense, so that means that these Zerglings are going to be able to pick up a couple more probe kills Protoss as well. 7 in total for just a handful of Lings, and maybe even an 8th one as well. Wow, that's a very nice bit of aggression there, and I think that that Neeb is not going to be all too happy with this scenario whatsoever. While this is going on though, Scarlett was just simply droning up. She's got that lair coming in right now. She's going for an evolution chamber. Wouldn't be surprised if she puts down, for example, a Baneling nest and a Hydra den in just a little bit too, because she has been favoring a lot of that Hydraling Bane style recently, just because it's so very powerful. But she does decide to immediately start researching the +1 melee upgrade. A lot of adepts are now actually also moving across the map. This is something that Neeb does all the time. It's actually pretty interesting. Both of these players are very good friends. I don't know if they managed to, or if they practice a lot together as well. But this is one of these weird pushes that isn't technically meant to do a lot of damage, but it can do a lot of damage if the Zerg player is just simply not making enough defensive units. And here we go. Adepts are going to be able to shade into the main base. Zerglings are going to try and get this around, but with these oracles that stayed alive from earlier, he is going to be able to kill all of these Zerglings in just a matter of seconds. Once again, right, the shades are going to be forced to move around, but it was just a little bit of a fake right there. Even managed to trick me as well, as 9 more drones end up going down. And guess what? On the other side of the map, we see that third Nexus coming in here for Neeb. He's not quite done with the aggression just yet, but while eventually all of these adepts will end up dying, it is not with 12 drone losses, or not without 12 drone losses. That's significant. Losing 12 drones for a Zerg player at this point in the game is absolutely massive. And actually, so far, this has been a bit of a worker massacre. Look at that, 24 workers in total going down throughout this match so far. HYDRAS is currently coming in though. Scarlett decided to pull the drones out of gas here for just a little bit. Eventually does decide to add them back in now that she has got herself a couple of new drones. But there's no denying that you want to build up to like 70 workers if you're a Protoss or a Zerg player for that matter as soon as possible. And getting halted there and getting slowed down is a massive, massive deal. So far though, this really means that Zerg is going to be the one that needs to play a little bit more defensively. Usually, it's going to be the Protoss at this point in the game that gets to decide the pace of the game. Well, we do see that Lurker Den coming in almost immediately here from Scarlett, and she's a player that has really been liking this kind of style. She's also going for the +1 missile almost immediately, and she's going to be capable of following this up with a potential really aggressive timing push here with 1-1, a lot of HYDRAS, Zerglings, and then potentially Lurkers as well. We'll see if that is going to be the case, because at this point on the other side of the map we do see Neeb just simply transitioning toward more and more bases. I think he may even be looking to take that gold expansion as soon as possible. Zerg already got their hatchery coming up here at the gold base for just a little bit of time. Couple of probes apparently did get picked off right there, the ones that were rallying towards the expansions. And Neeb managed to now also send a warp prism across the map to try and see if he can deal a little bit of damage using exactly that. And this is great timing by him, right? Right when the Zerg player decides to move out across the map with all of these units, at the same time, the Warp Prism is going to go into the main base. Zealots are already moving into the natural as well. They're very good at picking off just a couple of these stray HYDRAS. Getting +1 attack here would be massive. That's a rather big commitment here by Neeb, trying to get this upgrade shut down, but he does manage to do so successfully, and that means that Scarlett is going to fall behind in the upgrade game. Eventually, the majority of the Zealots will get cleaned up. Of course, Zerg does still have a very nice timing attack coming in, but there is no denying that at this point in the game, Neeb is in firm control of this match, as long as he manages to hold this counterattack. There's still a very substantial amount of Zerg out on the map. I mean, look at that. 68 workers or army supply here for the Zerg player. And actually also 68 worker supply, so I wasn't technically wrong. But 58 only here for the Protoss right now. Couple of rounds of Warpins, though, can definitely turn the tides very quickly. Neeb is going to go ahead and transfer some probes here towards that gold base expansion as well. Scouting out where that Zerg army is located. Figures out that indeed it is going to be pretty nearby. Couple of Lurkers now also get warped in actually, and morphed in rather. That's a big deal too. These Lurkers are going to be capable of absolutely shredding this army. Lurkers have this nasty tendency to kill everything on the ground. Eventually though, if there's going to be enough Archons and Immortals out, Neeb can quite easily kill it, but he has to be careful. If you accidentally walk into one of those, you can easily lose the game in just a matter of seconds. And here we go. Scarlett's gonna try and zone this army away. Look at that. The lurkers are being spread out, trying to make sure that this Protoss player cannot get a proper engagement off. Scarlett is dealing so much damage with these lurkers already. Still, though, there's a lot of Protoss available. Lurkers are dealing more and more damage. They're not being detected. There we go. Eventually, Revelation does come in, but the stasis wards also run out. Scarlett is just simply gonna retreat once again, trying to force this Protoss player to engage on top of all of these lurkers. If that's not the case, though, she's gonna be able to pick off these units rather rapidly. Nice little lift-ups right there, forcing the unburrow there on these lurkers as well, but there is still a lot of Zerg remaining. I wonder if there's going to be enough for the Protoss to eventually hold on. It seems like the warpins, the reinforcements here, may just barely be enough to clean up the last of these lurkers, but I think that Scarlett may have accidentally done it. I don't think she expected to win this game right here, right now. Neeb seemed to be in firm control, but he slipped up for just a split second, expecting the engagement at the third base, and instead, Scarlett managed to burrow down those lurkers at an absolutely brilliant positioning, and, you know, at that point, all of a sudden, you can't easily defend both your natural and your third at the same time anymore if you are the Protoss player. Game 3 is gonna be on Black-Pink Alley, and the score is currently 1-1. I have to say, though, I'm really impressed with the way that Neeb is playing so far. Yeah, in game number 2, he did end up losing, but it was just because he was playing a little bit too greedy, and he was just barely out of position. I mean, you could notice there that he was going for a really quick fourth base, very greedy there. He did have a robotic facility, but he decided to not really get any kind of observers there, if I'm not mistaken, and instead just simply rely on revelation of his very first oracles. It's a little bit greedy when you think about it, but so far, while he did indeed misposition his army for just a split second, and the lurkers just turned out to be a little bit too strong, Neeb has been in control of these matches. I wonder if he's going to be able to do something similar here in game 3 as well. We do now see a single probe once again making their way towards this natural expansion of the Zerg. And this is actually so annoying. Neeb is currently 3 out of 3 when it comes to denying this hatchery. You do have to, that actually unintentionally rhymed. I'm the sickest rapper in all of StarCraft 2. Did you hear that sweet rhyme? I want you to refer to me as L to the Yoko Loco from now, okay? Actually, that's another StarCraft caster, right? Although, I guess Husky hasn't uploaded in like 5 years at this point. But seriously though, Neeb is doing this really, really well. He's just simply getting himself a ton of economy out. He's just simply trying to play the very dominant style. And I wonder what it is that Scarlett wants to go ahead and do in this particular series. These probes are annoying. I've actually, like, this is the thing that I really like about the way that Neeb is playing. He sends out minimal amounts of scouts and still figures out exactly what it is he's going up against, right? And while he mispositioned his army in game 2, he expected those lurkers to move towards the third instead, so he happened to just, you know, get choked out of his own natural expansion. He's been in firm control of most of these engagements very, very nicely. And it's these probes as well that just simply verify that for a little while longer. I mean, Neeb just simply knows exactly where the expansions are going down. He's the one that rules when they will be built as well. But apparently Scarlett is now gonna go for a little bit of a switch. She's going for a Roach Warren. So we'll see what happens here, because this is going to be an aggressive build with probably a lot of Zerglings, and then of course a couple of Roaches and Ravagers as well. Wouldn't be surprised, though, to see an Adept coming out very shortly and to see this one immediately moving across the map. At the very least, that's what Neeb has been doing here this entire series. He's got that Stargate building once again, and if you are a Protoss player, right, and you're struggling in the Protoss versus Zerg matchup, I would highly recommend you go ahead and copy, like, the first 6, 7, 8 minutes of these builds from Neeb. I mean, he's playing very solid, straightforward styles. This Adept, like, it's once again, right, it's minimal amounts of scouting, but it's gonna be at the perfect time. I think that this Adept will figure out exactly what it is he's going up against. Just simply seeing this Queen already is a big deal too. This is not something that Scarlett was doing in the previous games. There we go. Shade is going to go into the main. He will indeed confirm that there are Roaches out. Roach Warren will also be spotted. 3 drones in the gas there. Neeb knows exactly what it is he's going up against. Wouldn't be surprised to see a Void Ray. Right? Void Ray, bam! Called it! No, but seriously though, like this build here for Neeb, it's just brilliant. It's really smart. It just simply sends out the probe early to see the timing of these expansions. Then he just narrows down the amount of builds he could be going up against. First Adept also gets sent across, and that one essentially dictates what unit will be built out of this Stargate. And Neeb is gonna be able to get this Void Ray out very, very quickly. Now, he's not out of the waters just yet, though. Scarlett does still have an absolutely massive army. Look at the amount of workers available right now. That does mean that Neeb is allowed to lose about 20 or so workers. Still, okay, not quite 20, but he's going to be allowed to lose quite a couple and still be alright. Here we do see Prismatic Alignment coming in, though, that allows this Void Ray to deal extended amounts of damage here to these Roaches. Brilliant Morphin on that Ravager there by Scarlett, but she's going to run out of gas, and eventually all of these units will end up dying nonetheless. Zerglings now, though, flooding into that natural expansion. We see actually an Oracle follow-up as well in that Stargate here for the Protoss player, but I can't help but wonder that eventually, right, this Void Ray will clean up every single last of these units here, and while Scarlett may, you know, be able to power down some of these structures, I think that indeed this Oracle is going to be a pretty important one as well, because Neeb is going to be able to go immediately for the counterattack, right? Like, Neeb is just going to be in utter control of this game, right? I think. More and more Zerglings are going to be able to move across the map once again. 2 Adepts now, though, going side by side right here, holding that wall. There's a shield battery behind it as well. Oracle is heading towards that natural expansion, or I guess this would have been the natural expansion previously, and Scarlett immediately GG's out. Neeb is in control of these games so far. The next match is gonna be on Ascension to IRLE. This does mean that we now have a match point right here for our Protoss player. Now, actually, in 2017, Neeb had a very solid year as well. In 2017, there were 4 different tournaments that non-Korean players could qualify for the WCS Grand Finals, for the World Championship Finals at BlizzCon. Neeb, and get this, Neeb ended up winning 3 out of 4 of those tournaments. It's a little bit ridiculous. This man is an absolute monster. He's very, very good. Now, in 2017, he definitely seemed very dominant. He's not going to be slowing down in 2018, I don't think either. But there are other players, like, for example, Serral, that have been thoroughly impressing me as well over the last couple of months. And every single time I see Serral play, he's just getting better and better and better as well. If there's ever going to be a best of 5 series that I can get, like, my you know, hands on, or if there's ever, like, a good match between Serral and Neeb, I would love to cast that. I mean, that would be one of the most awesome series. Maybe I should go ahead and put a show match on myself. You think that would be a good idea? Do you think players would agree to that? I don't actually know, but it's not a bad idea at all. Maybe I could go ahead and put up my own show match of, like, Serral versus Neeb. That would be cool. Definitely would be interested in doing more of that in 2018 as well. Regardless, though, Neeb indeed did not decide to send out the probe as early. This time around, he is a merciful god, and he decides to put this probe to good use here on the mineral line of the Zerg instead, allowing Zerg to get their expansion out. He's just simply going for a little bit of a later scout. It's actually kind of interesting, though. Why does he decide to do that? Like, what's the reason for that? Is there any particular reason why he would decide to, you know, send this probe towards the natural and you know, still scout with it, but then send it out a little bit later? Is there any particular reason why that would be happening? I guess it doesn't really matter all too much, though. Eventually, that spawning pool, of course, does get spotted as well. There's a Cybercore already going down once again on the other side of the map. And guess what? I wouldn't be surprised to see an Oracle coming out of this Protoss player after the Adept comes out as well. I think it's probably going to be the same old strategy here for our Protoss player. Now, Neeb does want to know, and maybe that's it, right? Maybe he's just a little bit worried of, you know, forcing the Zerg towards the 3rd base location on this map instead, because it's pretty tricky to get towards the natural once the Zerglings and the Queens are out. That could be a reason why this probe decided to not go for the you know, the counter right there. But regardless, first Adept is going to be moving across the map. Stargate once again is coming in, and Neeb is playing the same old strategy that has indeed allowed him to win 2 games in this best of 5 series so far. I mean, 1 more, and he will be able to obtain the victory. Now, I've actually seen Scarlett play some really cool builds on this particular map in the past. As some of you may recall, I recently made a video where I went over Scarlett's 51 worker timing push, or at the very least one that I have been copying a lot recently. Now, I messaged her after doing that build quite a bit myself, asking if I should go ahead and make a video about that build, and she mentioned that it's not particularly good, and I probably shouldn't. I've been doing that build a lot, and I think it's actually really strong. It's the Hydra build timing push. I've been seeing her play that strategy on this map in particular quite a bit, just because it does allow you to go for that very quick third nexus if you're the Protoss, and usually Zerg will be able to counter that quite efficiently as well. We'll see if that is going to be something that Scarlett has in mind. If that's the case, yeah, she's going to start up the lair. Then we should be seeing double gas coming in here in the natural, and then a fourth gas a little while later as well. There we go, in the main base too. I think that Scarlett may very well be building up to roughly or so 51 workers. And then transition towards a Hydra Ling based push. Wouldn't be surprised if that is going to be the case. It's a very powerful, aggressive maneuver where you can easily close out the game if the Protoss player is not playing, you know, their absolute hearts out. If you're making a slight error, it's easily doable that you can lose the game right then and there. Spore Crawlers coming up right now as well. Scarlett is not going to be taking any unnecessary risks in this particular match. We do now see the Twilight Council as well as the robotics facility coming up here for our Protoss player. No third base just yet, so Neeb is probably going to be taking that one right around the 5 or so minute mark, which seems to be the absolute latest that he likes to take a third base. Couple of overlords are now actually getting built here at the third base location. I quite like that. Scarlett trying to make sure that no drones will really end up falling. But here we go. HYDRAS then does get scouted. This is the exact build that I was referencing previously. She's creating a couple more workers here as well, bringing the total up to 51. And I think that she will be going for a very large amount of HYDRAS here in just a second. And this is a build that can do a lot of damage. It's just a little bit risky against someone of the caliber of Neeb. And we'll see how good Neeb is going to be able to you know, counter this push. Here's the thing about this build for Zerg. There's not going to be an Evo chamber, right? There's not going to be any upgrades here. There's not going to be a bailing nest. There's not really going to be a whole lot of units here available for the Zerg player other than HYDRAS and Zerglings. And it is a little bit risky. Adepts, of course, very, very powerful units. They do not have their glaives upgrade just yet, so they're not going to be quite as efficient just yet, but they're still going to be able to do a lot of damage if you're not careful. Units, though, for Zerg are just about to spawn. I quite like this nice little push here from Neeb, but I think it's going to be completely shut down with all of these HYDRAS already spawning as well. Queens are maneuvering all over the map, and Scarlett apparently decides to just simply transition towards more and more drones as she realizes what it is she's going up against. And, well, apparently the Stasis Ward once again forces a couple of these units off the mineral line for just a little bit of time. Scarlett is gonna be in a very nice economic position here at this point in the game. So apparently she's decided to not really continue this push and instead just go for the fourth base, go for the Evo chamber, go for the lurker den. She's still gonna be able to go for a little bit of aggression here, but something must have tipped her off. Just maybe seeing the timing right there on that third base of the Protoss, it being a little bit later than you would normally expect a third base to go up, may have just simply caused her to change it up a little and play it out a little bit differently here as well. Maybe it's just the adept push as well that actually, you know, just showed her that we more than likely are going to be seeing a bunch of Twilight Council upgrades, and she didn't really want to bother with those at this point in the game. Regardless, though, Neeb is going to start to juggling. He's a very, very good juggler. I don't know if he can juggle with, like, you know, circus attributes. Maybe he can like juggle like burning torches and all that, but he can most definitely juggle Archons absolutely brilliantly. Usually doesn't end up losing any of them. Of course, I say that and he almost ends up losing one of them actually currently at yellow health. Actually, this Warp Prism going down would be a massive blow here to the army of the Protoss, but it's not going to be the case, as Neeb just simply secures himself that third base location. He's going to go for the double fortress right now as well. Charge just completed, and I think we are setting ourselves up for a little bit of a macro game. I mean, Scarlett is once again going for the Lurker Hydra base composition that we saw her play previously as well. There's now also Overlords available, and Pneumatized Carapace is being built. I wonder if we're going to be seeing like a Lurker drop. That's something we have seen a little bit of in the past, but not all too much. It's actually pretty cool. If there are options for that, I would most definitely be interested in it. I mean, the thing is, she's getting missile upgrades, right? And missile upgrades usually indicate that you're not going to be focusing on Zerglings and Banelings as much, because they're not going to be nearly as powerful, but still, there's a really powerful push here coming in for the Protoss player. Lurkers are currently being morphed in, but fun fact, Lurkers take about 4.5 years to finish up. Couple of empty Overlords! Those are empty Overlords! That's so cheeky! That's like the empty meta effect drop that we have seen some Terran players going for. It's actually so sick, but still, a couple of these HYDRAS though on move command. Lurkers are going to be able to move forward here as well. They're going to try and burrow in efficient locations. A single Phoenix is not going to be able to shut down these Overlords as well, but here we go. Zealots are inside of the main base. I think they have managed to drop out of a Warp Prism. Warp Prism, though, eventually was dealt with as well, but there's no denying that there's currently a lot of damage going down here at the third base location. Neeb was trying to target fire down the hatchery, decided to not commit to it after all, and while he does still have a scary amount of units against Lurkers, you have to be extremely careful. Lurkers, of course, very powerful units. They can deal a lot of damage. They can also die very rapidly if they are in a bad position. It's such a fun unit. It's like playing a mage in an RPG and putting all of your points into damage and 0 in survivability. Now, you can tech up to Hive and get, like, the advanced talents upgrade. Just, you know, get them to burrow a little bit faster and have a little bit more survivability. But for the most part, right, they're gonna be glass cannons to the max. They can deal so much damage in a short amount of time, but they can also die in that exact same amount of time. 1-1 is just about to finish up, though, for our Protoss player. Neeb just managed to finish those up right away. I wonder if this will trigger a timing attack for him, or if he's just simply gonna transition towards 2-2 instead. He has been producing quite a lot of probes. 31 right now on minerals right here in the natural expansion, or in the third base expansion, rather. I wouldn't be surprised. And they're reduced, by the way, see 2-2 coming in. I wouldn't be surprised for him to go ahead and transition a lot of those workers towards that fourth instead. Get the gases going, indeed. Get a couple of cannons set up as well to be safe against whatever it is that your Protoss or your Zerg opponent is going to go up against at this point. And indeed, we are going to be transitioning to quite a late game focused army. Hive is getting started right now for the Zerg player. Neeb is going to be producing 2 Immortals right now at once. An Immortal Archon, very, very scary composition to deal with. That does mean, of course, that Neeb is going to be vulnerable against, for example, what's it called? A Brute Lord-based army. Brute Lords very good at cleaning up the majority of this stuff. It's just that Brute Lords also take a very long time to come out, even longer so than Lurkers, believe it or not. Seems a little bit unreal. Still though, there's a lot of Zerg. Look at the amount of stuff here available for the Zerg currently. I mean, the army of the Protoss does look pretty menacing as well, and these force fields can definitely change the day, but this doesn't seem like as powerful of an army as the Zerg has right now. Neeb still has a lot of Zealots just simply hanging out here near the bottom end of the map. They are going to be sent in as soon as Zerg moves across. Still though, Scarlett is trying to bait an engagement, but Neeb apparently decides to just simply back off, not really take any unnecessary risks, and just simply take control of the high ground here. There's a lot of Zealots right now, and this is actually pretty cool. I like this a lot. Whenever Protoss players do this, when they get 4 bases, 80 workers, and just immediately start spamming Zealots all over the map, it's a really tough thing for a Zerg player to deal with, because Zealots just simply do so much damage. 2 of them, though, are a little bit lazy. They're apparently daydreaming about the day where they can slay some Zerg, not quite realizing that they are already on the creep, and there we go. And they died. Great Protoss warriors, for sure. Zerglings now scouted out this handful of Zealots rather, that's also moving near the northern end of the map. This will force a pretty substantial amount of the Zerg army to get moved off the line, and at the same time though, Neeb is going to be pushing forward here, trying to see if he can deal the damage right here. There's so many Lurkers! The amount of Lurkers here is absolutely ludicrous. I was going to say that is a scary decision to make, as Zerg has got a massive amount of units burrowed underground. Spinecrawlers are coming in right now as well for Scarlett. Scarlett actually has got a solid amount of workers still. There we do indeed see the burrow upgrade here for the Lurkers, now that Scarlett is at Hive Tech. She's also going to be following this up with a Spire, so I wouldn't be surprised to see a Degrader Spire coming in. But I really have to say, I love, like, I'm a big fan of watching a lot of the professional SC2D or SC1 these days. I really do like the Hydra Lurker based styles that, you know, a lot of these professional players in SC1 play a lot. It's actually really cool to see this now come into play as well in StarCraft 2. But here we go. Scarlett ended up losing a couple of the Lurkers in the middle of the map. but she does have a very menacing force now moving towards that natural expansion. This is going to be a bit of an awkward scenario because as soon as Protoss is going to be forced to split off their units, immediately Zerg pushes in here with another army going after the 5th nexus here of the Protoss. While eventually though all of these units will likely be cleaned up, a bunch of the upgrades will get slowed down as well, and Neeb is still going to be in a little bit of trouble because Scarlett is going to continue pushing here. Look at this. This is such a cool style. Just simply transitioning towards like Brute Lords eventually, but focusing on a lot of Hydra Lurker here in the earlier part of the game instead. There's still a ton of Protoss available though, but I think there may very well just be a little bit too much Zerg. I mean, once again, right, Scarlett is going to be pushing onwards, trying to make the most of this scenario. Target firing down the Nexus. +3 is not even done yet, but these Hydralisks just simply deal so much damage. Probes will go down in just, oh my god, look at that. These probes, that's 30 probes in just, oh man, that's a big deal here for our Protoss. And while eventually, right, storms are here to ruin this Zerg player's day, a lot of damage was dealt already, and I think that Scarlett must be pretty happy with this scenario nonetheless. Now, she did overextend a little bit. Definitely overextended a little bit. Ended up losing a substantial amount of the army there. But already, right, Great Aspire is getting morphed in. Scarlett is finishing up +3 upgrades. There's spine crawlers all over the map already as well. And while Scarlett only has 60 workers, which is not all too much, I think as long as she manages to clean up this counterattack, she will be in a game-winning position. This may even require this base to be given up, though. I wonder if that's going to be the case. Neeb, though, still has got a solid economy, right? I mean, he ended up losing 32 workers there. He's still, or 33 in total, I suppose. He still has 4 bases right now, deciding not to remake the 3rd, apparently. He still has a very solid amount of economy, and actually, you know, nothing game-ending just yet. Scarlett, once again, sneaking in a couple of drones here and there. Gotta say, I really like this. I really like this. The Lurker Hydra based army, it gives me a little bit of nostalgia, and I didn't really play StarCraft 1 back in the day, so it's just so satisfying to see Hydra Lurker dealing that much damage. Neeb though, right now, look at this army. This is really well done by him. Going for a lot of these Archons initially and then transitioning towards a ton of Immortals. Now with Storm as well. This is an army that's very gas heavy, and that's the exact army you want if you are the Protoss player. Now Neeb, he's not actually making that many probes anymore. I'm a little bit worried for that part of this game. I mean, once again, right, counterattacks are going to continuously come in. Neeb is going to be able to defend against this one reasonably easily. I mean, the amount of units here available for him right now are pretty substantial, but he doesn't have a ton of economy anymore. He's up against a 70 worker drone, or a 70 worker Zerg, and that does mean that you're going to be forced to trade extremely efficiently here. I mean, Protoss is not going to be able to throw around Zealots anymore like they were doing previously into this game. And there we do see 4 probes once again coming in at a time. I like that decision a lot here for Neeb. He's going to be able to build up that economy once again. To simply play defensively here. Keeping the Zerg on her tiptoes as well. I mean, look at this, right? Just simply taking control of the center of the map. Pushing on creep just a little bit. Then pushing back. Splitting off their army as well. Just to make sure. Oh, and this is actually a risk. Leaving the High Templar right over there? You gotta be careful there. I was gonna say, that could easily be game ending if you're not paying attention. But I like this decision a lot though. Neeb just simply playing it slow, playing it steady. At the same time, we see a Viper transition. So we still have Hydra Lurker, but there's now also a lot of Vipers with this army too. Plus, of course, don't forget about the fact that we could see Brute Lords coming out as a follow-up. Still though, these High Templar do end up getting caught out on the map. At the very least, a couple of them will. Zerglings and Hydras taking a ton of damage, some of them dying as well. The Blink Stalker upgrade apparently now also coming in. There is already a fleet beacon, so Neeb wanted to set up for that big, you know, that big transition in the late game with, of course, a lot of those carriers as well. But here we go. Neeb is going to try and see if he can break through this spine fortress. A lot of storms are available. They are going to be key. The storms are going to be the ones that will decide where this game will go. Massive storm going down on so many of these structures. Oh my god, that is a ton of damage. Just simply wiping the floor with a lot of these Zerg units. Still though, the spines are poking away. Lurkers are still at a solid amount of HP. Vipers also use their Blinding Cloud really efficiently here. Neeb is going to try and push forward right now towards the victory. Lurkers still alive. Still trying to deal as much damage as possible. Base eventually does end up dying. I think there may just be a little bit too much Zerg left over, though, because I think that once these reinforcing HYDRAS spawn, and that's 13 or so of them there, I think that may just be a little bit too much. Right now, the Lurkers are going to be accompanied by these Vipers as well, and Protoss will once more be forced to retreat, but look at that worker count, right? Remember what I was talking about? Neeb being in the economic deficit? He's right now in a very solid position once again, building up to that 70 worker count, and he's even now transitioning towards the mothership. Brilliant play here by the Protoss player in yellow, but he's not out of the waters just yet. Love the way that these players are taking turns, though. Look at this. This is so sick, right? Both of them just simply trading super efficiently. This is a bit of a risky move now, though, by Neeb. He doesn't have a lot of energy on these High Templar, only a single storm available on most of those. So you have to be very careful if you are the Protoss player, but still, getting a couple of these creep tumors, you know, forcing them out of this map is actually a pretty big deal, too. Just simply not allowing Zerg division here in the middle of the map definitely can become a massive, massive deal in just a little bit as well. Brute Lords are finally joining this army, too. That's a scary unit composition to be worrying about, though. Look at the amount of brutes available. A single one. A single Brute Lord cocoon. Okay, a brother is now also joining in, or maybe a sister. I don't really know exactly what gender a Brute Lord is going to be, but still, this is going to be a scary, scary, scary army to deal with for the Protoss player. And on top of that, of course, these Vipers are going to be able to provide a lot of support. I can't help but wonder what Neeb is going to do against Abduct, right? Here's the Mothership. Mothership will be able to help out this army quite a bit. It's just it's just gonna be so hard to deal with all of these Vipers, right? Like, the Vipers are simply gonna abduct these units very easily. One Mothership at a time. They're very expensive. They take a long time to build. And while this does open up the opportunity right now for Neeb to potentially go for like an offensive recall, which is definitely a very, very strong strategy as well, it's quite the commitment. Because while you can go ahead and mass recall as well, there's still going to be a lot of units left over. Anyway, we do now also see carriers being built here for Neeb. Neeb is going to be able to push forward with a very strong maxed out army here in just about a minute or so. Once again, denying those creep tumors here at the top of this this ramp. Really liking this decision. Scarlett, though, apparently wants to take an engagement. She does not want to wait until Protoss maxes out. And I can't blame her. Maxed out Protoss armies, in particular when Stargate units are involved, are very, very scary. This is still a unit composition, though, that is going to be able to deal a lot of damage, but you have to micro it absolutely perfectly. There we go. Ooh, Vipers are trying to threaten forward there. Of course, there is feedback available on these High Templar. They will be able to shut down these Vipers very easily. There's only two of them. Two Vipers, that is. Plenty of High Templar available at this point in the game. And I think that we will be seeing a massive maxed out engagement in just a little bit. Zerg is trying to slow push forward, trying to push the Protoss back into a corner. One of these Vipers, though, taking critical damage already. A few Stalkers going down, but that is definitely a trade that Neeb can make at this point. You want to make sure that you get these Vipers up as soon as you possibly can. The Vipers are really, really important here still, though. Lurkers and Brute Lords. It's a powerful composition. Once again, just simply abducting that carrier is going to be a pretty tricky situation to be in as well. A lot of these storms now going down on the Lurkers, but Lurkers have a lot of HP. Brute Lords, in the meantime, are going to town right now on that Nexus as well. This is one of the most important mining bases now for the Protoss player. Still, though, this is an awkward angle to fight in if you are Neeb. I mean, Neeb is just simply trying to make the most out of this scenario. I think he may very well have decided to go for a counter-attack instead of trying to engage all of these units. I mean, the Brute Lords and the Lurkers, they're going to be able to very easily fight the majority of the armies that a Protoss player has. Now, a lot of these Corruptors are coming out as well. They're going to be capable of dealing a lot of damage too, but at the same time, here we go. The Protoss player has made their way across the map. He's going to try and deal a lot of damage. There's still a lot of Archons in the ground, though. These Archons are, or not in the ground, rather. These Archons are going to be able to deal a lot of damage to the Lurkers in the ground. And Neeb, while he is behind currently in the supply count and he's forced to deal with Brute Lords on his side of the map, he's got a very, very scary amount of units trying to close out this game right here, right now. Going after all of these important tech structures as well for the Zerg player. These storms are absolutely massive. Mothership eventually does end up falling, and while there's only really a handful of carriers remaining right now, and then also Immortals, mass recall will be forced. Zerg managed to hold on to this shenanigans, but that still is not an easy army to deal with. I mean, Neeb is now even taking a base right here near the central bottom end of the map. This by no means will go up. There's no way that Zerk is gonna allow this. Still though, Neeb only has 39 workers available. He doesn't have a lot of economy anymore at this point in the game, but neither does the Zerk. This is really a back and forth continuously. Nice blink right there, picking up one of these Brute Lords for essentially free. There's still a lot of Brutes, however, available, and these Hydralisks are just continuously pushing onwards, right? The Hydra Lurker based composition and then the transition towards the Brute Lord Corruptor, I have to say, I'm a fan. I really, really like it. It's something that we haven't really seen in StarCraft 2 at all. I mean, Lurkers really weren't part of the meta for a very long time, in particular against the Archon Immortal-based styles, but here we go. Zerk is smelling blood. Zerk wants to close out this game right here, right now. Tempest are desperately trying to deal with all of these units as well, but the amount of Hydras available, I think Scarlett may have just barely been able to do this. What an epic match here. Absolutely trying to shut down these Protoss units. Protoss is trying to back up now. These storms are absolutely money as well. Stalkers once again blinking forward. Wait. I looked at this engagement and thought that Protoss was absolutely getting demolished, but all of a sudden, right with these money storms, and now the Tempest cleaning up the last of the Brute Lords, there may be a way for Neeb to push back this army. He's gonna be able to do so, just barely. He's gonna be able to do so, and now a couple of these Hydras are actually really important right now. The Hydras will also be deflected. Neeb only has 27 workers available. The smallest of Protoss armies that I have seen. Once again, 19 probes going down. Zerk is desperately trying to reinforce this. Lurker Den is now being rebuilt as well. My god, that was one of the sickest engagements in StarCraft that I've seen in a long, long time. That was a back and forth that I've ever seen. That was so sick, I almost forgot to cast there. I was just, you know, watching that with my mouth open. Look at this, though. Scarlett is in a lot of trouble. Scarlett is in a lot of trouble. Another Archon joins in this engagement. Drones are now pulled off the line as well. This is actually a really smart decision because, of course, these Immortals shoot really very slowly. I think there may be a little bit too much Zerk here after all. 22 drones going down in just a matter of seconds, and somehow, some way, Scarlett obtains the victory in one of the best games that I have seen of Zerk vs Protoss in recent times. Now, I will admit, I'm a little bit of a Zerk fanboy because I do play a lot of Zerk myself, but man, was that a well-played game here by both players. Well, there we have it. The final map in this series is going to be Abyssal Reef LE, and spawning in the top left corner, playing a brilliant series so far, we have none other than Neeb. And his opponent in the cross position in the opposite corner of the map, playing a really cool Hydra Lurker based style. She goes by the nickname of Scarlett. I'm gonna go ahead and give that Hydra Lurker style myself a chance as well. I mean, it's gonna be a tricky style to play, I can already tell you that, because it's very easy to lose to, for example, Zealots and Adepts if you are not producing the exact amount of units that you need at the correct timings, but Scarlett's playing it really, really nicely. At the same time, though, actually, I have to admit, I also want to play the style that Neeb is playing in this series here, and the build order that he's playing for like the first 8 or so minutes. I mean, it seems to be safe against pretty much everything. I've been struggling a little bit myself in the Protoss versus Zerk matchup whenever I do play Protoss myself. It's actually a really tough matchup oftentimes just because it often feels like Zerk is going to be capable of just simply all of a sudden throwing like 20 Mutalisks at you. It's pretty uncommon for them to go ahead and do so, but there's always the option for it, you know what I mean? And it's actually really tricky for a Protoss player to figure out how they need to go ahead and defend against everything. And Neeb seems to be able to pull off crazy defenses by just, with just minimal amounts of units in the earlier part of the game, although that does require you to micro quite well. And I'll be honest, micro is definitely not my strongest point when it comes to the Protoss units. In the late game in particular, if you're playing Protoss in the late game, you've got like 5 hotkeys for all of your different units. It's kind of crazy, the amount of spellcasters that you have to worry about. Anyway, Neeb so far though playing the same strategy every single game. Once again, denying that expansion here. Making a little bit of a star right there in the natural as well. Look at that. Absolutely beautiful. Just simply making sure that he is denying that expansion in style. We see that Extractor, of course, once again coming in. Spawning pool just about to finish up as well. Scarlett has showcased a couple of really aggressive builds in this series so far. I wonder if she's planning to do something similar in this one as well. I wouldn't be against that at all, actually. I've quite liked these aggressive styles. Even though Neeb seems to be really good defensively, there must be a crack in his armor somewhere, right? Like a chink in his defense that you can abuse. I'm not entirely sure, though, what exactly that would be. So far, because so far, Neeb is just simply defending whatever it is he's going up against. Once again, right, Adepts are, you know, making their way across the map. That probe, once more, denied that third base, or that natural from going down, and forced the third base instead. And while this is a map, by the way, that's been around for a very long time, I don't think there's really going to be that much wiggle room anyway for like players to go for a really aggressive push. I mean, the fact of the matter is, and once again, we do see that Stargate coming in. The fact of the matter is that if a map is out for a very long time, like for example, Abyssal Reef, this one has been in a map pool for like a year and a half or so, players just simply know exactly what it is they are dealing with. It's very hard to trick your opponent. On newer maps, usually you do have some options, but on some of the older ones, like for example Abyssal Reef, everything has just mostly been figured out. Interestingly enough though, and this is actually a recent development, Terran players for some reason have started taking that third down here. Some Protoss players have actually been doing the same thing as well. We'll see if Neeb decides to do something along those lines. It's pretty interesting. Even if a map is around for a long time, sometimes it may not necessarily be the most efficient way of playing, but players just simply like to mix it up to try and throw their opponents off guard, even though it's technically speaking less efficient than just simply taking the one where you're, you know, usually going to be taking it. It's actually pretty interesting. One of the Adepts, though, does end up dying there. Zerglings are going to try and chase down, see if they can find that last Adept as well. Really nicely done so far, though. That nice little juke there by Neeb, making the most out of this scenario. Now, a single Phoenix is once again going to be flying across the map. Actually, interestingly enough, this time around we don't see the Oracle coming out first. Instead, it's going to be a Phoenix. So Neeb is going to be harassing these Overlords for just a little bit of time. Eventually, though, the Sport will be forced to come down, and I think that we may be setting ourselves up for a bit of a macro game once again. Scarlett, though, mixing it up, going for the Bailing Nest this time around instead of the super quick lair. I quite like that decision. It does allow you to be safe against, for example, Adept-based openers. Neeb, though, in this particular instance doesn't really want to bother with any kind of these Adept-based openers that I was talking about. He does end up killing a single drone there as well, but at the same time, he's getting a third base at the 4-minute and 20-second mark. At the 4:20 mark. That's the perfect mark, apparently, to go ahead and take that third expansion. Twilight Council coming in, wouldn't be surprised to see a robotics facility starting up in just a second as well. And Neeb is going to transition towards the good old Protoss mid game that has been quite similar actually over the last couple of really like a year or two. I mean, we obviously did see the removal of the mothership core, right? And while Protoss were really worried that they were going to have to figure out everything once again, so far it seems like they're mostly playing very similar strategies at just a little bit of a different timing. Adepts now moving across though. We do see the Glaives upgrade coming in here for the Protoss Adepts, and at the same time, robotic facility is also made. Adepts are going to be able to shade towards this third base location right from the get-go, but ooh! Man, almost committed to that shade there. These Banelings would have been able to clean that up before it even dealt any damage whatsoever. Neeb would have been in a world of hurt if that was the case. But apparently, though, Scarlett just simply decides to go up towards that lair once again, starting up the +1 melee upgrade as well. And while 6 more gateways are coming in here for Neeb, I think that he may be planning to go for a big aggressive push here once this third base has got a little bit of saturation on it as well. Once again, though, nice little pickup there. That's nice, right? Like, that's a big deal. 4 workers doesn't sound significant, but that's the little advantages that very quickly add up. I mean, that didn't cost Neeb anything. I didn't really lose any HP on any of those. I mean, maybe a little bit, but that was just energy, of course, on these Oracles. And the Oracles, they are going to be able to regenerate that economy or that energy very, very rapidly. Here we go, though. Warp Prism is coming out. We do see the Glaives upgrade just about to finish up for the Adepts. The gateways are now also done. And I think that we are going to be seeing a big push here from the Protoss. It only makes sense, right? He's made this many gateways. He must be doing something useful with this. Still, though, Zerg has got a lot of Banes already available. There's Queens here, too. We do see the HYDRAS den now done, too. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a bunch of these being produced in just a little bit. 4 of them actually coming out right now. More Banelings are also being produced. At the same time, though, we see Neeb producing these Adepts on the right-hand side of the map, too. So he's going to try and do a little bit of double-pronged harassment. Technically speaking, there should be enough units here for the Zerg player to deal with this. Creep spread has been absolutely on point. Very important to see these units coming in. Adepts will get shut down here at the third base location at the same time. Adepts are dealing a lot of damage right now in the natural, but is this going to be enough? I mean, these Queens are even transfusing Hydralisk right now. 4 workers only going down. The fort base is still up and running for Scarlett. I think that Scarlett managed to deflect this aggression very, very well so far. Once again, though, another wave of adepts does decide to shade into that 3rd base location. Couple of drones, once again, will end up dying. HYDRAS are desperately trying to deal the damage that they can, and the queens will aid in this defense as well. Interestingly enough, even though Neeb didn't really seem to do a lot of damage there, he's still ahead economically speaking. Fort base for the Zerg is now done. So I think that we are going to be seeing a bit of an economic switch once again, maybe after this push comes out here for the Zerg. I mean, Scarlett definitely is planning on making more drones, right? Although she does set up for a really powerful timing. Already finishing up, actually, she went for +1 melee earlier, but instead she decided to switch to missile instead. Interesting. We do see that Lurker Den just about to finish up though, and while a couple of drones are now going to saturate this newly acquired fort base, and the War Prism ends up falling, Neeb is playing this out smartly, already putting up stasis wards, expecting this counter-attack here as well, but still building up that fort nexus. And this is what Neeb does, right? He's like, okay, if you're going to go for a counter-attack, I'm probably going to be in some trouble, but if you're not, I'm just going to go ahead and take a lot of economy instead and just, you know, overwhelm you with the amount of forces that I can make. We now also actually see the extended thermal lens being researched here for Neeb. He's going to be going for the Colossus play. Colossus are one of those units that we didn't really see a whole lot of in StarCraft 2 until like patch 4.0. They're actually surprisingly good, in particular against this lurker-based army. Of course, HYDRAS and Zerglings are both light units. Colossus now deal bonus damage against light, more so than they did in the past. But still, Scarlett is going to be able to do a lot of damage with these lurkers as well. Lurkers and Colossus both have 9 range each. Neeb's army is not very menacing right now. Look at this. This is not very menacing at all. A lot of this supply count that he's got right now is going to be caught up in these... nice force fields, by the way. But it's going to be caught up in these Colossi that are still producing. 2 of them at once right now. Neeb is going to be pushing up the... Or rather, Scarlett is going to be moving up the ramp here. Potentially trying to go after these gateways here on the top of that ramp. HYDRAS now, though, dealing a lot of damage here to these reinforcing units as well. The Colossus already picking up a handful of kills, trying to make the most out of this scenario. It's quite the commitment for a Zerg to try and target fire this one down. Extended thermal lens is almost finished as well. So far, though, defense has been really solid for Neeb. Another Colossus is now joining in too. Observer is now getting chrono boosted out too, so Neeb will be able to see these units in just a little bit. But apparently, with the units breaking into the natural and that adept push utterly failing, Neeb has got enough of it. He decides to GG out, knowing very well where this game is going to be going, as Scarlett obtains the victory in this best of 5 series. Very, very fun matches. I hope you enjoyed watching it as well. If you did and you haven't already, make sure you hit that like button down below. If you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get a notification as soon as future videos go live as well. And other than that, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright? Special shout out to the Patreon supporters as well. You guys are awesome. But I'll see you all in the next one.